Gentle, whimsical music begins, "Hello and welcome." Have you ever looked up at the sky, seen a bird soar effortlessly on the wind, and wished just for a moment that you could do the same? Well, today I have a story for you from a cozy little village called Meadowbrook, a place where the cottages are thatched with straw and the gardens overflow with flowers. And in this village lived a very special cat. His name was Whiskers. He was a sleek black cat, as dark as a moonless night, but his eyes were what truly set him apart. They were a brilliant emerald green, sparkling with a curiosity that often led him into the most peculiar of adventures. Whiskers wasn't like the other cats in Meadowbrook. While they were content chasing mice or napping in sunbeams, Whiskers had a different, loftier ambition. He wanted to fly. His inspiration, a family of crows that lived in the old oak tree at the edge of the village. Every day, Whiskers would sit at the base of that magnificent tree, his green eyes tracking the crows as they launched themselves into the air. He watched them ride the currents, cawing to each other in a language he desperately wished he understood. They were the masters of the sky, and Whiskers, a creature of the earth, felt a deep, undeniable pull to join them. He studied them for weeks. He observed how they'd angle their wings to catch the breeze, how they'd flap with powerful, deliberate strokes to gain height, and how they'd glide in graceful arcs, seemingly without a care in the world. To Whiskers, flying wasn't just about getting from one place to another. It was about freedom, about seeing the world from a perspective no other cat had ever known. One sunny afternoon, an idea sparked in his clever feline mind. He saw Mrs. Gable, the kind old lady from the cottage with the blue door, putting out a stack of old newspapers for recycling. The wind was gently rustling the pages, making them lift and dance for a moment before settling back down. Wings. The newspapers could be his wings. Filled with newfound purpose, Whiskers waited until Mrs. Gable had gone back inside. He tiptoed over to the stack, his paws silent on the cobblestone path. He carefully selected two of the largest, crispest sheets from the Meadowbrook Chronicle. These would be perfect. He dragged his prize back to his secret workshop, a secluded spot behind the old stone wall of the churchyard. For the next few days, Whiskers became an inventor. He tried different ways to attach the newspaper sheets to his front paws. He tried tucking them under his legs, but they just crumpled. He tried holding them in his mouth, but that was just silly. Finally, with some stubborn determination and a bit of tangled twine he'd found, he managed to fashion two makeshift wings. They were clumsy, they were crinkly, and they looked absolutely ridiculous, but to Whiskers, they were a masterpiece of engineering. His first attempts at flight were, well, let's just say they weren't very graceful. In the privacy of the churchyard, he'd take a running start, leap into the air, and flap his newspaper wings with all his might. The result was always the same. A frantic rustling sound, followed by a soft thud as he landed unceremoniously back on the grass, usually in a heap of tangled twine and torn paper. He tried 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. Each time ended in failure, but Whiskers was not a cat who gave up easily. The crows in the old oak tree watched his antics with great interest, but they would caw down at him, and Whiskers, in his optimistic heart, chose to believe they were offering words of encouragement, sharing their ancient secrets of flight. He'd look up, meow in response, and then try again, convinced he was just one flap away from success. He knew he needed something more. He needed a stronger wind and a higher launch point. His gaze turned toward Clover Hill, the highest point in Meadowbrook, a gentle, rolling hill covered in a blanket of soft green grass and dotted with wildflowers. Autumn was beginning to paint the village in shades of gold and amber, and with it came the blustery autumn winds. This was his chance. One crisp afternoon, with a determined wind whipping through the valley, Whiskers decided it was time for the great rehearsal. He repaired his newspaper wings with fresh sheets from Mrs. Gable's latest recycling pile and began the long trek up Clover Hill. The wind was even stronger up here, tugging at his fur and making his paper wings flutter wildly. It was perfect. He reached the very top of the hill, the whole of Meadowbrook spread out below him like a patchwork quilt. He could see the spire of the church, the smoke curling from cottage chimneys, and the tiny figures of villagers going about their day. Far below, he saw the old oak tree and the crows, now just tiny black specks against the landscape. Taking a deep breath, Whiskers gathered all his courage. This was it. He remembered everything he had learned from watching the crows. He crouched low, his muscles tensed. He looked out at the vast open sky, his emerald eyes wide with a mix of fear and exhilarating hope. Then he ran. He sprinted towards the edge of the hill, his little legs pumping as fast as they could go. He hit the crest and leaped, launching himself into the powerful autumn wind. For one glorious, heart-stopping second, he felt a lift. The wind caught his newspaper wings, pulling him upwards. He was flying. He was actually flying. The sensation was incredible, more wonderful than he had ever imagined. The ground fell away, and he was suspended between the earth and the sky. He could see everything. He let out a triumphant meow that was carried away by the wind. But his triumph was short-lived. The very wind that had lifted him was also his undoing. A powerful gust tore at his fragile wings. Rip, the first sheet of the Meadowbrook Chronicle was shredded and sent scattering into the air like confetti. A moment later, the second wing gave way, the twine snapping under the strain. Suddenly, Whiskers was no longer flying. He was falling. He tumbled through the air, a flurry of black fur and panicked meows. Below him, the ground rushed up to meet him. But fate, it seems, had a soft spot for ambitious cats. He didn't land on the hard ground. Instead, he landed with a soft whoosh right in the middle of Mrs. Gable's laundry line. Becoming tangled in a freshly washed, soft white bedsheet that billowed around him like a parachute. He dangled there for a moment, swaying gently in the breeze, utterly bewildered. He had flown, if only for a few seconds, and he had survived. The crows, who had followed his flight from the oak tree, circled overhead, cawing loudly. This time, Whiskers was sure they were laughing, but it was a friendly, appreciative kind of laughter. Did Whiskers ever truly fly like a crow? No, not in the way he had dreamed. He tried again, of course. He tried with bigger leaves, with pieces of stray cloth, with anything he could find. He must have tried over 100 times throughout that autumn, each attempt a little lesson in physics and a big lesson in persistence. But as the days grew colder, Whiskers started to realize something. He might not have been born with wings, but he had something just as special. He had a brave heart, an endlessly curious mind, and the courage to chase an impossible dream. He learned that the thrill wasn't just in the flying, but in the trying. It was in the feel of the wind, the excitement of the leap, and the unwavering belief that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. And so, Whiskers, the flightless flying cat of Meadowbrook, became a local legend. He never did soar through the sky like his friends, the crows. But he found his own kind of freedom, the freedom to dream big, to try and fail and try again, and to look at the world not just from the ground, but with the soaring heart of a flyer. Thank you so much for joining me for this little story today. I hope it brought a smile to your face. If you enjoyed our trip to Meadowbrook, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more heartwarming tales. We love having you as part of our community. Until next time, keep dreaming big.